the Tuesday Mind Emission on the Toad Cam coming from New York, Toad City. Boy, what a day it has been. So our subject will be calibration. Calibration. At least we'll touch on calibration, because John Grinder thinks calibration is a very, very critical piece of NLP, one of the basic pieces. Actually, I think even in his model, underlying the capacity to model is the capacity to calibrate. And calibration means this. It means that you have a standard, okay? And you compare something to a fixed standard. So when you calibrate a system, you calibrate it to a standard. So if I were going to go out and buy a scale, then there's scales in all different sensitivities and all different price ranges, but I want to make sure that my scale is right, okay? So you need more than just a scale. If you go out and buy a scale, it may be right, it may not, but what you do is you also buy a calibration standard, and that is a weight that has been very, very carefully calibrated, say like to 1/10 of a gram or a 1/100th of a gram, little metal weight that says, okay, this will be exactly 1 ounce. So if you ever go to a place where weight really matters, like a jeweler, like a wholesale jeweler, and that jeweler is weighing stones, and a little different in weight in stones makes a huge difference in the potential price you may be paying for that stone. So what a jeweler will do, an honest jeweler, when they pull out their scale, every time, in a wholesale jewelry setting, every single time, before they weigh a diamond, they will take out a special little calibration weight, and they will check that scale. And if there's any tiny adjustment that needs to be made, they will compare it against that fixed weight, which is kept. You never touch it with your hand. It's only touched with tweezers, and it's kept in a special box. And the whole thing, you can, because even the acid on your fingers could change that, or even the oil on your fingers could change that standard. So you're calibrating off a standard, and so the jeweler will always, and if you're a real picky buyer of jewelry, you may bring your own scale and your own standard. But the important thing is the calibration. You're calibrating from a standard. So today, released in the New York Times, was one of these, what people are now calling overnight, a Sputnik moment, a moment of having one's sort of collective cultural institutional mind blown because of this changing calibration. And what happens is this: the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, does a 65-nation study of educational accomplishment. I think, and this is at different grade levels, and the full methodology is absolutely monstrously huge if you go to the OECD's site. But what they were looking at was 15-year-old kids, and they were looking at the relative state of academic achievement among 15-year-old kids among 65 nations. Out of nowhere in the last, and I think this was the data that was finally compiled, I don't know if it was 2009, something like that, China, okay, especially and particularly the region of Shanghai, China, absolutely smoked the rest of the world. And that report was just released. They came up on the 3 standards, or the 3 scales that are tested for scientific knowledge, for reading comprehension, and for mathematical skills. Shanghai, China was world top in all 3, and 2 below that was Hong Kong, China. And I think Finland was up there, and a few others. In America was, in some cases, way down there, maybe not Zimbabwe, but not real good in some cases. Especially in math, I think America looked real bad. And anywhere from real mediocre, just sort of run-of-the-mill mediocrity, to really, truly sucking the wazoo. And this surprise, I feel like Claude Rains in Casablanca. I am shocked. People were shocked to find out that the Chinese, not only have they been completely resetting the standard in a lot of other stuff, in their business operations, their manufacturing, their ability to coordinate the the purchase of farmlands and raw materials, that they're gaining greater and greater sort of control over the supplies of raw materials and food producing regions, and et cetera, have now just blown the standard completely. If they're grading on the curve, they completely burned the curve for the rest of the world. Those kids are coming out so far ahead of everybody else. It's one of these things where policymakers are looking at thinking, this is like a national security issue. Their capacity their ability to model absolutely world-class teachers and produce a culture. So they invest a lot of money in training their teachers. And how they do this is they really go out there and they study and they model and they map, however you want to call it, what the absolute best teachers are doing, and then they spare no expense and no effort in installing those abilities in their best-of-class teachers, and then create best-of-class teaching environments for students. And the result is, this is like NLP with Saturn V boosters on it or something. They have just blown out the whole world standard for what it means to educate teenage kids. And of course, what that also means is that, in a very short amount of time, they are going to have a population of people that has just got their act together so much more so than, we are, whether we're debating whether, humans rode dinosaurs on saddles, or, all this weird shit that we think, this bizarre, irrational, unscientific thinking. I'm sorry if I'm offending any creationists out there, but this is a wonderful case of completely recalibrating the standard for what a competent, smart 15-year-old kid is. It's an amazing example of recalibrating a standard for what a competent, well-managed educational institutional environment is. And it's completely going to recalibrate where we in the world stand relative to the Chinese in this great human race to the top, and in some cases, in our case, perhaps race to the bottom. So I'd pick up on that. That is a case where the minute that report hit, it was like a bomb went off or something. People, you could just feel the sort of the waves of freak out just kind of emanate from that report. People go, oh my God, they really are whipping our ass something fierce here, and we're looking real B-, as a general undertaking. So check it out, the OECD report, and compare that with your ideas of calibration and what that means to have a standard, and who sets the standard, and what happens when a new standard is set, a tighter standard, a better standard, where everything falls in relationship to that standard. An amazing day. It's breathtaking. It was truly, like people were saying, it was a Sputnik moment. It was a holy shit moment. The standard has been moved, and it's been moved way, way up.